Ilia Topuria is already chasing Islam Makhachev at welterweight, and the craziest part is that the entire MMA world is lining up to say this super fight is inevitable. Long before Ilia even defends the belt he already has.
Digo, ¿quién quiere combatir Ilia Topuria?
Yo, mira, pues tengo a Paddy en la mente. Me gustaría pelear con Paddy si es que no me dejan subir en peso welter para pelear con Islam, porque el combate que realmente me gustaría tener es en contra de Islam en la tercera categoría. Pero bueno, vamos a ver, a lo mejor hago un combate y después en verano hay alguna fecha en la que sí que me dejen subir de categoría y pueda pelear por el tercer cinturón, o se cree un nuevo cinturón llamado el Pound for Pound en un peso pactado en donde nos encontramos los dos y peleamos por ese cinturón de libra por libra. Así que vamos a ver, hay muchísimas opciones, como siempre. Vamos a ver lo que depara el futuro.
Brendan Schaub fires the first shot by predicting Ilia jumps straight to 170 to hunt down Islam, claiming Ilia's speed and power could actually shock the division, even though the wrestling advantage screams disaster on paper.
Islam, если UFC тебя попросят провести бой с Илией Топурией в 70 килограмм, согласишься ли или теперь только 77?
70, я думаю, это должно быть слишком хорошее предложение, чтобы я опять начал вес гонять 70 килограмм. Так как я уже не молодой тоже в этом виде спорта, и каждая весогонка забирает тоже годы здоровья, и уже не так легко, как раньше вес гонять.
He says Ilia at lightweight feels razor sharp and competitive with anyone, but at 170 the size and strength become a nightmare puzzle. Yet he still backs Ilia to make it a real fight.
See, now I ain't gonna lie to you guys, I want to see Ilia Topuria versus Islam now. I want to see it even more now. Dude, Ilia versus Islam White House. Make it happen, Dana. Make it happen.
And don't blink, because in 30 seconds, Henry Cejudo drops a take that flips the entire pound-for-pound debate on its head.
If you have to bet on it, you're probably going to get a blockbuster fight with Ilia Topuria going up to 70 and fighting Islam. Who likes that fight for Ilia? Now, at 55, I favor Ilia. I like 55 matchup. Islam, Ilia, that's a fucking fight. Ilia jumped up to 170. I don't know how he deals with that wrestling. I just don't know. But if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Ilia. He has the wrestling pedigree. He has the explosiveness. He has the quickness. He could do it. I would imagine he's still a slight dog in that fight, though. But I'll be rooting for Ilia. And I would assume that's what the UFC does.
Henry Cejudo doubles down on Islam being the true king of MMA, saying it's not about highlight finishes, it's about consistency, dominance, and taking risks when others play it safe.
Speaking of Ilia, speaking of P4P, you know that's what we know around here. We know that pound for pound around here. Henry, do you have new rankings in your pound for pound?
Yeah, you have to. Well, it's not just me, but the world, dude. Officially, Islam Makhachev is pound for pound, and rightfully so. Can I tell you why? It's because he's competing a lot more frequently, man. Like he's gone up a weight class, and yeah, he didn't get a shutout. He didn't knock him out, but it just shows the wrath of his top control and what he can do to a guy that was 15 pounds heavier from going to 55 to 70. I'm not mad at it. I feel like Islam's been dominating for so much longer than Ilia Topuria. You got to give him those. You got to get him those kudos. So it's not just this last fight. Because if you just go by fight, then it would be Ilia. But you also got to go with just resume wise too. How many times he's defended his title.
He reminds everyone that Islam moved up a weight class, walked into enemy territory, and still controlled a naturally bigger, heavier opponent like it was nothing.
Of course, Ilia's chasing Islam. Unfortunately, Islam is a welterweight now. So it's a hard case to say, hey, I want to go and be a 3-division champion without defending this belt over here and then just moving up. That's hard for the company to do because now not only do you leave a hole in one division, you leave a hole in 3 different divisions.
Cejudo's message hits like a hammer. Ilia might shine bright, but Islam's run is longer, deeper, and scarier than anything Ilia has ever done.
Вот многие после такого выступления считают, что бой с Ильей – это полный мисс-матч. Ты как считаешь?
Не факт. Я думаю, что с Ильей будет намного тяжелее, чем с Мадаленой было.
Из-за низкого центра тяжести и борьбы?
Из-за антропометрии, и я думаю, что у Ильи намного тяжелее удар, чем с кем он дрался?
Джек Делла Мадалена.
Да, я думаю, что у Ильи тяжелее удар, чем Мадалена. Мадалена меньше ронял, чем Илья. Илья почти всех роняет.
But keep watching, because in a moment, Kamaru Usman breaks down why Ilia's dream fight with Islam could rip multiple weight classes apart.
I think 16 wins now. He's equaled Anderson Silva, one of the greatest of all time. Champ. Who stops him?
Yeah, I mean that is an incredible record. That's what I said when we talked about this fight. He's just so good. It almost feels like there's nothing he can't do, and when it comes to the fight, but. The fight I would still want to see. I know he's at welterweight right now, but the fight I would love to see is him versus Ilia. I think that is the way to go. I think that's an amazing fight.
Yeah, Ilia's had a lot to say, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He's just full of confidence, and rightfully so. He's still the pound for pound #1 fighter. He's also a double champion. I don't think we cannot let that fight happen eventually.
Kamaru Usman steps in and says Ilia's chase for Islam at welterweight puts the UFC in a brutal position because you cannot jump divisions and collect belts without defending the one you're already holding.
But speaking of Islam, who do you think is most deserving to fight him next?
You know, either Usman or who else they got that? I mean, I want to see the Topuria fight. Everybody wants to see the Topuria fight. I think it needs to happen. You know, whether they do it at welterweight or they do it at lightweight, that fight needs to happen. We need to settle it. And I think that Ilia will be a toughest fight because he has that low center of gravity, so he's a lot shorter. So it's going to be harder to take him down and hold him down. So he's got good jiu-jitsu. I see him getting back to the feet, and obviously he's one of the biggest punchers the UFC's ever seen. So I'd like to see Ilia get his hands on him.
He says letting Ilia chase a third division isn't a small decision, it's a chain reaction that disrupts contenders, rankings, and the entire lightweight ecosystem.
Makhachev's in the GOAT conversation. Not top 10, not top 5. He's there. He's right there at the top. And I think his next opponent needs to be something special. Somebody undefeated. Somebody dangerous. It's Ilia Topuria. We got to run it, but when do we run it is the question that I want to ask now. Look at that crafty smirk, dude. He knows something we don't about this matchup, but my take is on this situation. Islam Makhachev's next fight should be Ilia Topuria. But Ilia Topuria's got to do a title defense at lightweight, man. If Arman Tsarukyan, and this is coming up this weekend, Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker in Qatar. If Dan Hooker wins, forget it. Run Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. If Arman Tsarukyan wins, you got to do Ilia Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan in January or February on a Paramount pay-per-view, and then run Makhachev versus Topuria in the White House.
And then Arman Tsarukyan detonates the debate by saying Ilia would be a way bigger threat to Islam than Jack Della Maddalena ever was.
First of all, you can't just have Ilia Topuria gallivanting around divisions while he's got deserving contenders that need to have their own chance at legacy themselves in Arman if he does defeat Dan Hooker, which I assume he will. But I think we have to gamble it. We have to gamble it. Just like we gambled Makhachev JDM. Right? Was this part of Makhachev's plan to draw Topuria up to 170 where he'd have a much better chance of winning, in my opinion? Yes. But he had to gamble this fight. We could have just made the fight. We didn't. He gambled this for big legacy, double champ status. I know Ilia gambled the Oliveira fight, but that was a long time ago now. Time to roll the dice again. If Arman Tsarukyan defeats Dan Hooker, as I assume he will do, run Makhachev versus run Arman Tsarukyan versus Ilia Topuria. And if Ilia wins that with a fresh call out for Makhachev on the mic, I don't think anything will sell McGregor level pay-per-views ever again. Purely, and based on the Paramount stuff, it won't. Simply won't, because we won't have that format anymore. But it will be a similar...
Arman points at Ilia's power, his killer instinct, and the insane stat that almost everyone Ilia touches ends up on the canvas.
How would Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev go? That's kind of the operative question here. How would that go? Well, it's kind of funny, right? I think Ilia is a genuine KO threat, and I do think he can put up a better first stage defensive wrestling job than JDM did. But if he's not able to knock Islam out early, I think that he eventually gets worn down and beaten too. 145er coming up like that, I did not grow more confident about Ilia's chances based on watching this fight. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't fill me with like great confidence. Oh, well, I mean, the guy to beat him is clearly Ilia Topuria. I think that the Ilia Topuria fight makes sense for a few reasons. Promotionally, stylistically, and almost a necessity for the sport to make big fights.
He says JDM never had that kind of finishing ability, but Ilia absolutely does, and that's why Islam can't sleep on him. But hold on, because in the next segment, Dricus du Plessis calls this fight so big it should be mandatory.
But did y'all watch that and think, oh yeah, Ilia is definitely gonna... Oh, I saw something here. I thought Ilia had a chance before. Now I'm really sure. Did y'all watch that and think that? I didn't. I wouldn't say that's the impression that I got. I take Ilia's chances of winning very seriously, and I do think he can put up a better fight, even as big as Jack is at 170. I absolutely think that. But at the same time, I think that Islam is so fucking comprehensively good. And again, we haven't even talked about the fact that much that this dude went up 15 pounds to do this. He looked plenty strong for me at 170 pounds. That's a tough ass fight. I mean, it would be kind of miraculous is a strong word. It'd be surprising if Ilia was able to win that one, especially if they contest that at 170. So Ilia can hold on to the 55 belt. Do they do that at the White House? Do they do that at some other card? I don't know.
Dricus du Plessis says Islam versus Ilia is the champion versus champion mega fight fans have been begging for, and the UFC can't stall it much longer.
I mean, Ilia's got to go out there and beat Justin Gaethje. He's got to go out there and beat Patty, whoever he beats. He's got to go out there and get the job done. But Ilia, I'm so curious if Islam can do this to Ilia. Ilia, he matches that skill set, and I just feel like it would be a lot closer of a fight than Jack versus Islam was. That's the fight you have to make. That's the fight that should have made this time, but they didn't. But that's okay. Islam got the job done. Ilia, it's like even if he's going against Patty, it's like I don't know who I got. I want to see Ilia win his next fight just so we can see Islam versus Ilia. That would be the biggest, most skillful fight of all time, and it would be honestly hard to beat. I don't see who Islam doesn't do this to in that division. Yeah, we haven't really seen Ilia get tested in the grappling. Bryce Mitchell is a very high-level grappler, and Ilia handled that. Bryce had fucking strep throat. He was sick. He was on antibiotics, remember? Ilia would be significantly smaller in height. No matter what they will fight at, Ilia will be 5'5". It's just, it is what it is. He's 5'5". Islam's fucking 6 foot. They're gonna look different. You know what I'm saying? But Ilia's skill set is so high. They're both 10 out of 10s in MMA. Rare, John Jones, 10 out of 10. Rare, there's a couple people in MMA that have that skill set that can do everything. Strike, wrestle, jiu-jitsu. Both those guys have it. So I don't know. I mean, in that sense, maybe size does come in. Maybe size does matter.
He praises Islam's complete game and domination, but says Ilia is a double champion with ferocious consistency and the power to end anyone. Du Plessis insists this fight is too massive, too iconic, too legacy-defining to ignore. It has to happen, and everyone knows it. And then Colby Covington jumps in and pours gasoline on the fire. Colby Covington says, forget the other contenders. The next man Islam must fight is Ilia Topuria, whether at lightweight or welterweight. He says Ilia's low center of gravity, slick jiu-jitsu, and lights out power could make him the hardest man Islam ever tries to hold down. Covington even predicts Ilia could catch Islam in an exchange and put him out cold, and that's why fans need this fight now. But the wildest take comes next, because MMA Guru puts Islam in the GOAT conversation and still says Ilia is the only man worthy of facing him next. Guru says Islam versus Ilia is the perfect storm for legacy, superstardom, and historic attention, maybe even big enough to headline the rumored White House card. He explains that Ilia needs to defend the lightweight title first, but once that box is checked, the doors burst open for the biggest fight of the year. And if Arman Tsarukyan beats Dan Hooker, Guru says that sets up an even bigger call-out that pushes Ilia toward Islam with nuclear momentum. Guru predicts the hype could reach near McGregor levels, even without the old-school PPV model. Now watch this next part closely, because Thomas breaks down the matchup at 170 in a way that exposes just how insane this fight actually is. Thomas says Ilia is absolutely dangerous, more dangerous than JDM was at 170, but Islam's mastery is operating on a different planet. He reminds everyone that Islam didn't just move up, he moved up 15 pounds and still looked dominant, calm, and fully in control. He says Ilia would need an extraordinary performance, the kind you only see once every few years, to pull off the upset at welterweight. And then Merab Dvalishvili drops his final verdict. Merab acknowledges Islam's elite wrestling and suffocating pressure, but says Ilia's power and striking are the great equalizer that could flip the fight instantly. He believes forcing Islam to stand gives Ilia the perfect window to land something brutal and finish the Dagestani champion. Merab says the fight would be hell, but Ilia has what it takes to stop Islam. Makhachev. So here's the real question hanging over the sport right now. Does the UFC dare to book this fight soon? And if they do, who actually walks out alive? Islam's all-around game looks untouchable, but Ilia's knockout power is the kind of weapon that erases perfection in a single second. Drop your take in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and stay locked in, because the next announcement from the UFC could change the entire landscape of MMA overnight.